Kyle, you've disappeared now. Kyle, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
I enjoy dramatic introductions. I serve as a pastor for Prayer and Ministry Hope Church in New Hope. I believe we're both residents currently.
Whoa, the delay got way bad right there. Like now it's like I can only hear like every other word. That's weird.
Any better without Bluetooth?
Try your introduction now. Let's see.
Kyle Davison Bair. I serve as pastor for Prayer Church in New Hope, Minnesota, and hopefully that came through more than every other word.
More of it came through.
Lovely. All right. Well, you continue to go and just see how it works.
Yep. Actually, what we could do.
81.
What we could do is try Zoom. See if I can just start a Zoom or Whereby or something.
That could work.
Whereby. Put the link in the chat. Do you see the private chat?
I do. All right.
There, try that.
Trying that.
Mm-hmm. I need a haircut. Hair is all frizzy and loopy. You can let it grow too long. Diet pink. I'll diet pink again for need a mullet. No, mullet sounds like a terrible idea. Terrible idea. Hello, Scam Cat. Ooh. T-mullet. Sounds like it would be extremely counterproductive in meeting the women's. A reverse mullet. That doesn't make sense. My Scott Pilgrim. I didn't watch that movie.
I have no idea what's going on, but hopefully at least my audio should be working right now.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
All right. Let's take clear audio over glitchy video and delayed audio then.
Sure. Did you try the link I sent? Because the link I sent might work too, but it's working now. So,
I tried it in 2 different browsers, and the first one, the video was even glitchy to me, and the second one, the video just did not even
oh wow.
load. So I
All
have no
right.
idea why.
Martin says audio is beautiful, so we can hear you clearly. So
Perfect. Thank you,
start
Martin.
over. Pastor Kyle, you're from New Hope, Minnesota. Is that near me? I'm in Minneapolis.
Yes, northwestern suburb.
Cool. So you make for coffee. Awesome.
Yes, and there are a number of good coffee shops in Minneapolis, so that would not be hard. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I serve as pastor for prayer ministries and counseling at New Hope, and that means that when people are in their worst situations, they come to me. And so every day I get to deal with people who are in very difficult places and lead them to better places.
Well, that sounds difficult, but I hope it's something that you're passionate about. So the topic today was why TJump should be a Christian. Interesting choice of topics. Tell me more about
Yes.
that. Why do you think I should become a Christian?
Obviously not for technical reasons. Do
Uh,
not become a Christian for tech support. That would be terrible. Um, yeah, I think this will be a fun conversation.
should I ask God? Does God like send me a? Have you tried turning it on and turning it back off again? Turn it off, turn it back on again. Like faith. Have you tried turning your faith off and back on again?
There you go. This power cycle. Um, yeah. Well, either this will be really fun and it'll go really well today, or it'll go terribly. In which case, I'll look back on this in 10 years and enjoy it then. So either way, I think this will be a win-win.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, well, I apologize if this conversation feels like it's, you know, talking an alien language or anything. I looked at some of your other videos. I couldn't find anything directly on this topic, but when I was looking at this, thinking through this through, why Tom should become a Christian, why should anyone become a Christian? I came up with 5 reasons, and there are obviously many more, but just 5 to focus on for a 1 or 2 hour long conversation, however long this ends up being. Um, and I'll tie the first 3 points into a story and just use that as an introduction to them. Um, uh, I've had enough of these conversations to preface this. I don't share a story as anecdotal evidence. I'm not sharing the story as this story happened, therefore believe. It's not that. I share this story as lightning. If you imagine Ben Franklin, all the pioneers of studying electromagnetism, you see the lightning flashing in the sky during a thunderstorm, and it sparks your curiosity. You see that power. You have to try to understand it. You have to try to figure out, how can I harness that? How can I study it? How can I utilize it? That's what the story is to me. It's like seeing the lightning in the sky and figuring out, okay, how can I know more about that? Um, and so this is the story. My firstborn son, Ira, was born dead. I mean, he was born dead. When they delivered him, he was not breathing. His heart was not beating. He was blue and purple all over from oxygen deprivation. He was born dead due to complications in the delivery. He was without oxygen for a minimum of 15 minutes, possibly up to 25. And when he was delivered, everyone comes to a point like that. Somebody says it was God's fault that he was delivered that way. Interesting. We'll get there. When my son was delivered, dead, and you're looking at that, it's one of those moments in life everyone comes to where you come to the end of yourself. There's nothing I can do in that moment. There is nothing I can try to accomplish that will change that situation. And it's that moment that brings you to the end of yourself. And at that point, you have to ask, what do I hope in? But is there anything I can place my hope in? And I clarify, I love science. I love every medical advancement. We are at one of the best um, hospitals for delivering children in the country. I love every medical advancement, but that's kind of the point. Even the best medical knowledge and technology could not prevent my son from being born dead. So at that point, what do you do? Where do you place your hope? The, the doctors, of course, got to work on him immediately. Um, they did revive him. They eventually got him stabilized. They got him up to the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, hooked him up to an EEG, and began a process called total body cooling. whereby they basically put the body into a state of hibernation for 3 days to minimize any further damage to the brain because it's been without oxygen for so long, and to kind of kickstart the body's healing process. And that took, he was born on Sunday. He was in the NICU under total body cooling until Thursday. During that time, we had hundreds of people rallying around us. We had hundreds of people praying. We had them offering food, every kind of support you could possibly imagine. They took care of every need. So we could just sit there in the room by our baby, who was hooked up to all these monitors and machines. On Thursday, they warmed him up. The total body was cooling was done. They took him in for the MRI. He, laid pretty still in the MRI. They got about as clear pictures as you can imagine. That was Thursday evening. Friday morning, we're awaiting the results. And we had friends who've gone through this before, a very similar type of experience. And they told us when the neurologist goes over all the results, you are not going to know what to feel, because they have to point out every bit of damage. They have to point out anything that could potentially be damage. They have to cover their bases, but also they want to tell you accurately what's going on with your kid, and you will not know what to feel during that. So that's what we were expecting. Therapeutic hypothermia, yes, says eFont81 exactly. So the neurologist came in Friday morning, and he just told us straight out, I've gone over all the EEG, I've gone over all the MRI results. We cannot find a spot of damage anywhere in your son's brain. And if you know anything about how the brain works, how quickly damage sets in when oxygen is not being supplied, for a minimum of 15 minutes, if not 25, for there to be no damage after that much oxygen deprivation, that is not how the natural world works. And the reason I share this story, like I said, this is my lightning story. This is where something happens that grips your attention. Because if, for the sake of the argument, if that power is real, and if God really did heal this brain that should have been heavily damaged after such an intense lack of oxygen, if that's real, for the sake of the argument, if that power is real, wouldn't you want to understand it? Wouldn't you want to study it? Wouldn't you want to know more about it? Somebody's saying this is an appeal to emotion and this is an argument. No, the story is not presented as an argument. I am not saying this happened, therefore believe in God. I'm saying this is like looking up in the night sky and seeing lightning flashing during a thunderstorm and wondering, how can I study that? How can I harness that? How can I utilize that? That's what I want. This story is a lightning story that grips your attention and also demonstrates and ties into the first three reasons why Tom should become a Christian. And the first one is simply hope. Because everyone comes up to that place where you are beyond yourself, where you are taken beyond what you can do, you're taken beyond what science can do, you're taken beyond what anything can do. And in that moment, where do you place your hope in? And so the first reason, Tom, that I would love for you to become a Christian, because people need hope. And more than just hope, you need a hope that's bigger than yourself, that's beyond yourself, but most critically, a hope that is actually powerful enough to do what you are expecting it to do, what you are wanting it to do. Because false hope gives no one, false hope just makes the crash even worse. False hope does nothing. But people need hope. This is a world full of people who need hope, and we need hope in something that has the capability of following through on what you're hoping for. That's reason one. Reason two is community. Like I said, we had hundreds of people rallying around us when we were going through that. And when you're going through that situation, no one should have to go through it alone. No one should have to go through those moments alone. And as far as community goes, like, we all know of those Christians who give Christianity a horrible name. We all know people who claim the name of Christ and then live exactly the opposite of the way Jesus lives. And on behalf of all Christianity, I apologize for them. But when you're going through these hard times, everybody needs loving community to come around you. And I have found no community more loving than the Christian community. And so it's second reason, Tom, why you should become a Christian, to be a part of that community. And because everyone needs that community to share it, to create it, to further it. That community where people really do take Jesus' words seriously to love your neighbor as yourself. And we have had so many times when we have gone through moments like that, where we have had the Christian community rally around us and have not found anything more loving, more self-sacrificing, more giving, more sustaining than that community. The third reason, power. Like I said, this is my lightning story. Because if that power is true, and if there really is a power that supersedes nature, and if there really is a powerful that is able to do what the natural cannot do, wouldn't you want to understand it? Wouldn't you want to study it? Wouldn't you want to utilize it? Wouldn't you want it to be able, uh, like studying the lightning in the sky, wouldn't you want to figure out how to understand that, how to use that, how to work it out in your life? So the third reason Tom should become a Christian is to access that power, to use it not just in your own life, to use it in the lives of all the people around you who need it, because this world is so incredibly full of people in pain. And we have an incredible lot of people to love, and an incredible amount of pain to heal. And if that power is real, wouldn't you want to study it? Wouldn't you want to understand it? Those are my first 3 points. And someone says in the comments here, I'm preaching, maybe slipping into that. So I'll pause here. And let's.
Sure.
By the way, can I just say there's a lot of get him TJump, shut him up. Don't worry, Aaron Flower. I'm giving him the mic now. I'll shut up.
Yeah, it's usually best to not read the comments. Comments are.
Oh no, that's the best part.
Like I appreciate it. Like if you yell at the people in the comments, I get more views. So please yell at them all as much as you want. But
oh no, I don't. Yeah, I love it when people push back.
So the things you mentioned, hope, community, power. It seems like the community aspect. I have many Christian friends, church group friends, and I'm not a Christian, so I don't seem like it need to be Christian to have the community. Same with the power thing. I can study unknowns, and I think there are lots of forces in nature that are beyond our understanding and do more than what we understand, and we can study those without being Christian. Most Nobel Prizes go to like disproportionately atheists now, so I don't think we need Christianity for that. And the hope thing, same thing. Like I think we can hope in things other than a God. There are many atheists who are spiritual and have hope that don't involve a God in any way. So I don't see why. I don't see why why Christianity would provide these things that any kind of worldview or ideologies wouldn't provide.
Yeah, I hear your response, but I also hear you shifted a little bit of each one of them I said. The first thing about hope is that there's a ton of things we can hope for. There's a ton of things we can put our hope in. But the point is you need a hope that can actually carry through. I can put a vague hope out in the universe and just hope that everything is going to turn all right. There's no power at work. There's nothing guaranteeing that the hope that I put is actually going to follow through. The point of having hope behind yourself that is able to sustain you, that is able to provide something, that is able to actually carry through, is something that I found uniquely in the Christian faith. I haven't found it in the naturalistic worldview. I haven't found it in the Muslim worldview. I haven't found it in the Hinduistic or Buddhistic worldview. I have found it in the Christian worldview, where you're able to hope in something that does carry through supernaturally.
What does that mean? Like, how?
My son being example number one, that a brain deprived of oxygen for 15 to 25 minutes suffers damage. Everything we know about the brain certifies that. It starts to begin be damaged at about 4 minutes. It goes quicker if the heart isn't beating and there isn't a fresh supply of blood flowing to the brain, bringing a fresh supply of oxygen. The brain begins to deteriorate rapidly without oxygen. 15 minutes especially, there is damage. It's just how the brain works. Everything we know about medical knowledge confirms that.
Those are averages.
There's not a spot of damage in my son's brain.
So biological timeframes for damage of lack of oxygen, heart deprivation, whatever, those are all averages, and it changes from person to person. So there's a number, like obviously the longer you go, the more likely it is to suffer damage, but it's not 100%. And so there are many cases that don't, many cases that do. Most people die, but I don't see that being indicative of a miracle. That just seems to be indicative of biology.
Yeah. Tickle Tank even says here maybe his heart was beating a little bit. No, the beauty of this story is that it's about as medically verified as you could want. They were monitoring his heart rate, from before this even happened to, obviously when he was delivered, when he was resuscitated. We know medically certain his heart was not beating. He was not breathing. And like I said, when he was delivered, he was blue and purple. I mean, everything you imagine a body to look like that's been deprived of oxygen for an extended period of time, he looked like. It is medically certain his heart was not beating. He was not getting his oxygen for that long. And you're right that the 4 minutes is an average, but 15 minutes for a baby is even way beyond, again, what anything you would expect naturally.
I don't think so.
And it's something I encourage you to look up. It's not even.
Well, so there is 0 medical conditions that have, like, this is not something we would expect naturally. That's not a thing, especially for hypoxia, especially cancer. Spontaneous remission happens all the time. For every disease has some level of spontaneous remission. Rabies has cured cases. Like, there is no such thing as, there is no natural explanation of this happening. It doesn't exist. The only thing that, like, that could apply to is regrowing limbs. We don't have any examples of that happening. So if you've got some miracles of that, that would be great. But pretty much everything else is spontaneous remission, naturally caused. Like, there's nobody says that this can't happen naturally in biology. It's not a thing.
We do actually have plenty of stories of amputees regrowing. I didn't bring any of them out here because, of course, the comments are calling me crazy enough as it is. If I brought that out, they just say, "Turn it off. This guy isn't even thinking."
I don't think that's how it works. I think if they say, the more crazy it gets, the more they watch, ironically. But yeah, if
in
you
that case, let's keep going.
But if you had, like, evidence of people actually regrowing their limb that can be scientifically verified, that would definitely count as evidence. Like, if you could pray over a guy and have his limb regrow in a scientifically verified environment, yeah, that would be evidence for sure.
Mm-hmm. And for that, there is, I could point you to John G. Lake and his healing rooms in Washington, specifically the ones that took place next door to a clinic with an X-ray machine, and they would take the X-rays before and after. You can look that up. John G. Lake being the guy, his healing rooms over in Washington. Invite people to look that up, but that's just something you can find out swiftly on the internet. It's not something I've experienced personally.
Right. Now, initially my question would be, is it seems fake. It seems like I can fake X-rays very easily. So I could do that, have an X-ray and make it post a broken arm on a computer screen, and then wave my hands over them and make it post an image of a healed arm. Doesn't mean it actually happened. So I would need some actual medical professionals that are not religious to actually do not like religiously motivated to do the experiments here to confirm that it actually works. I don't just trust spiritual healers that much, because a lot of them, most of them, all of them that have ever been tested have found out to be not telling the truth. So it's doubtful that that is truthful, and to show it was truthful, we would need stronger evidence than his say so or his ministry say so. We need him to be able to do it under a controlled scientific experiment.
Exactly. Where's his Nobel Prize? Well, he's been dead for 100 years, so that would explain where his Nobel Prize is.
Well, if he came back and did a miracle, that would also be phenomenal evidence.
Yes. If we were in Texas right now, Zeus is the highest of the high. I love reading these comments. Let me actually take you to point number 4, because that answers some of these questions. And point number 4 spins off number 3, but it refines it. If witnessing physical healing, again, let's just say for the sake of the argument that physical healing does happen, and that it intrigues you to study more. Again, compare it to the lightning in the sky. You see this electromagnetism happening. You're studying, how can I apply it? If that's question 3 or point 3, then point 4 is a refined example of it. It would be, a modern day example of charging a battery, of using electromagnetism in a way that's studied, that happens every day. Again, what I mentioned, my job title is Pastor of Prayer Ministries and Counseling at New Hope Church. One of the tools I use daily is called transformation prayer. And this is an aspect of supernatural healing that it's mechanical, if I can use that word. It is supernatural, but it has mechanical rules that you can study, that you can figure out, just like figuring out the rules of lightning, figuring out how you can apply it in daily life. Transformation prayer is something that works that way. This is something that I use daily, on average of Twice a day, I work through this with people going back 5 or 6 years, totaling thousands of cases. That's just me. Transformation prayer exists worldwide. At the last count, it was in over 170 countries worldwide. It's been used by tens of millions of people. The data that we have for it is just phenomenal. And so again, where you're asking for repeated trials, when you're asking for, more than anecdotal evidence, but something that can be universally applied, this is something that I can point to quite rapidly. Transformation prayer, it's supernatural, but it's simple. George M., nothing feels like prayer. I come in for an appointment. We can experience it directly. Transformation prayer. Somebody says transformer prayer. No, transformationprayer.org. All the information is there if you want to look at more.
So I've done a bunch of research into prayer studies, and prayer studies have no successful evidence of them actually working in any controlled experimental studies. The ones that
I'm not talking about that. That's a completely different topic.
Oh, so what's the difference? What's a transformation prayer?
Let me give you an example. I had an atheist come in, coincidentally enough, for transformation prayer a little while ago. He did not want it personally, but his family was bugging him to come in, and so he basically came in for an appointment just to shut them up. I walked him through what transformation prayer is. The short summary being, well, I'll tell you the story, then I'll get back into the details of it. So we start working through this. At the end of the first session, about an hour and a half, he said, I'm willing to admit transformation is happening. I'm not willing to admit it's God. He came back for another session. By the end of that session again, he experienced transformation twice. And again, pushback. How do I know this is God? How do I know this is not me? And I just pointed out that it only happens when we ask God specifically to work. And by the end of the second session, he was able to say, yeah, I can see that correlation. Transformation prayer does not require belief. It does not require you to be a Christian. You can be anything and it works. The heart of transformation prayer is following every negative emotion that you believe, following it to the belief causing that, presenting it to God. And the only prayer involved is a one sentence, Lord, what do you want this person to know? CJ, what do I mean by transformation? Exactly this. That atheist was feeling massive amounts of anger. And so we just took it one by one, focused on one of the really hard pieces of anger he was feeling, just drove down to the heart of it. What's the belief undergirding that anger? Found it pretty quickly. Anger does not hide. Once we found that belief, just crystallize it in a sentence, presented it, ask it to him. Does this feel true? Yeah. Does it feel painful? Yeah. There's a lot of anger coming off of it. Just offer it up. Okay, Lord, what do you want it to know about that? And then my job is done. I don't counsel. I don't give advice. I don't stand up and pray for him to be healed. I just say, all right, Lord, we found the area of pain. What do you want him to know there? And then I just wait for God to work. Moon Shoes, you say most of your anger comes from religious abuse. You are not alone, my friend. I work with a lot of people suffering from exactly that kind of anger.
So I'm not quite understanding how the transformational prayer is like a reason to become a Christian. I don't understand. The relation here, like we could do this with any religion and tell someone, like in therapy, what they do is they cause introspection. That's what I don't like therapists. They never do anything for me. But what therapists do is they get people to introspect about the things that are causing them stress and help them to work through those issues by calmly talking about it. They don't really do much of anything, which to me is synonymous with prayer. And so I don't see what the difference is between what you're saying and what therapists do in general.
It's exactly the opposite. I don't talk calmly and I don't talk people down. I talk people right into the pain. I want to lead people right to the place that's hottest, where the anger is hottest, where the pain is greatest. Because right there is where God wants to work most strongly. So again, with this guy who came in, working with the anger, found the reason why it's coming from. It feels real, it feels painful, it feels hot. I say, all right, Lord, what do you want him to know right there? And I believe in that moment, how he experienced God was thought popping to mind that directly addressed what he was experiencing. It doesn't always happen that way. People have a wide range of different experiences. But the evidence that I look for to see whether this is really God, whether it's people's imagination, whether it's a hallucination or whatever else, I look for transformation. So a minute later, literally 1 minute where I'm saying nothing, where he's not doing anything, all we've done is ask God, what do you want us to know about that? A minute later, I present the same thought. Does this thing still feel true? That 1 minute ago felt angry, had you almost, clenching your fist. Does it still feel true? Does it still produce anger? And no, it doesn't.
Well, again, I'm not following what the difference here is between that and therapy. So therapists do focus on the issue. All they do is make
Hmm.
you think about it. I
Yeah,
don't see like meditation does the same thing. Meditation causes this relaxing sensation of you focus on things that make you angry, and then you get a relaxed sensation afterwards. So I'm not seeing why this is special as opposed to any psychological thing, because it seems just like general human psychology of that. If you introspect about issues in certain ways, you can cause it to be relaxed and not bother you as much.
right. Which is the opposite of what I'm talking about.
Right.
I don't do anything to relax people. All I do is
Well, no,
stir
no,
them
no,
up.
no. So I'm not saying what you do. I'm saying doing introspection in any form, the kind that you're talking about, where you say talk about or think about the thing that causes you stress, and then think about it again after you do the prayer, or doing meditation or doing therapy. They're all forms of introspection. Any form of introspection, most of them can cause a relaxing sensation. It's just what introspection does. It's like a placebo kind of a thing. So any form of introspection can cause the phenomenon that you're describing. You don't need Christianity for that.
No, but I appreciate that because that clarifies that I'm not describing it well. I'm not describing a calming sensation after you feel it. I'm talking about the lie that was producing the anger, producing the pain, is replaced with the truth to the point that you can think about that same thought that produced the anger that had you ticked off for years, and you can't even make it feel angry anymore. That even if you try to produce the anger, you try to go hunting for it, it's just not there anymore. And it's not just that moment, it's days after, weeks after, years after. I'll give you a more specific example. There was a woman who came in and she had held on to anger for 40 years against her husband, who had left her, just did some horrible things to her. And she had, of course, tried everything you can think of to deal with the anger. Like I said, there are a lot of forms of therapy. There are a lot of techniques to try to get people to release your anger, to try to control your anger, to try to calm it down, and she had done many, 40 years, and nothing had stuck. Nothing had worked. And so I just worked with her to try to find, CJ, this is literally what therapists do. Oh, we'll leave that behind in a second. She was angry at her husband for a variety of specific reasons, and so we just found each one, um, and just having her connect with that anger. Why do you feel angry at him? Really connect with it. What comes to mind? Is she's angry at him for this reason because he did this? Okay. Do you sense any resistance or hesitancy at the thought of letting that anger go? And right there, you discover the reason for the anger. Yeah, if I let that anger go, he gets away with treating me like I did. All right, so the reason for holding on to the anger is what? I need to hold on to that anger because it is the only way I have to get back at him for how he treated me. All right, that feels true. Yeah, I have to hold on to the anger because this is how I get back at him. And they're feeling the anger right now. You can see the blood vessels dilating. And just right there, Lord, what do you want them to know? And that's all I do. And she hears from God. God speaks. I forget exactly what her experience was in that moment. I could look back at my notes to find out. But 2 minutes later, does it still feel true that you need to hold on to your anger because it's the only way you have to get back at him? And no, it doesn't feel true anymore. And then for the first time, she says, I can see that this is only hurting me, not him. And just like that, the lie producing the anger gets replaced with the truth and it sticks. It's not something I have to convince her of. I didn't even tell her a darn thing. I just let her experience the work of God in that. And we just worked through it. She had 12 different reasons why she was angry with her ex-husband of 40 years. And after we worked through all 12, God had spoken to each one. Each one no longer felt true, and the anger was just gone. She couldn't call it back up. I had her think about all the situations she'd gone through that had caused the anger, and she couldn't make herself feel angry by listening to or by thinking about all those memories. It just was gone. She called me 2 weeks after the appointment, and said, "Is the anger ever going to come back?" I said, "Now, if you've dealt with all the reasons why it was there, it shouldn't be there. Anger is only there because of a reason. If you've dealt with all those reasons, the anger shouldn't come back." And she said, "Well, good, because I've been free for 2 weeks, and I was just wondering if that's how it's going to continue." And that's the difference between transformation prayer and therapy. This took 2 appointments of about an hour and a half each with her to just completely reduce all the anger she had felt through her husband for 40 years. And I said nothing. I gave no advice. I gave no guided meditation. I didn't do anything except a one-sentence prayer. "Lord, what do you want her to know?" Right in the heart of the anger each time. And this is something I do daily. Again, I do this with about 2 people every day over 5 or 6 years. I'd say half of them are not from my church. Many of them are not Christians at all. But God works with such incredible regularity. Like I said, this power is mechanical. It is reliable. You can study it, you can figure out how it works to the point that it's what I do daily, and it works. I would say 98, 99% of the time. The only time it did not work with someone is when they were just had zero interest in even listening to what it was or going through it. And that again was a case where somebody brought them, or a friend brought them in, and they really didn't want to go through it, but they wanted to please their friend. Every other case, whether they're a believer or not, whether they're a member of the church or not, whether they expect it to work or not, it works.
Well, if that was the case, then I'd call it evidence, but I don't think it does. Like, from my understanding of these kinds of systems, they work at the exact same rate as chance. So Buddhist meditation has a similar success rate, that if you go and do a Buddhist meditation one time, it can free you of certain kinds of depression or certain kinds of anxiety permanently for a small number of people. And the same thing applies to lots of different kinds of therapies and introspections. For some small number of people, it can cause almost instantaneous results of curing their anxieties. But it doesn't work higher than chance. It works the same rate as chance. And so it's not a reliable method to cure anything. And so I'd say it's most likely the
And what's the rate
case
of chance that you would assign to it? What would you say is the same rate of chance?
lower than 1%.
This works for me at 98 to 99% of the time.
So,
It's not subject to chance. It works with almost every single person who goes through it. Again, whether they're atheist or Christian, whether they expect it to work or not,
well,
it
we could
works.
try it. We could try right now. I can come in, or if you do it in person, we can try it with me coming in person. I'd be happy to do that. It'd be pretty easy. But I would be willing to bet that, as with most versions of, like, what's it called? The alternative medicine stuff. Ooh, like chiropractic. Chiropractic. Chiropractors spend like about an hour with their patients, as opposed to a doctor at a medical facility, which spends like 10, 15 minutes at max. And after going to a chiropractor, the subconscious psychological things of the touch, the being spent time with from a professional, the atmosphere, these things cause people relaxation and cause them to feel better just by being in the environment, which is why people think chiropractic works when actually it doesn't. Literally, no scientific evidence chiropractic works. It's like 99% of things. It's a complete waste of time and money, but it makes people feel better at a high rate. High rate makes people feel better because it makes them feel comforted. And so in the same way, it's like a placebo. And so in the same way, I'd say that your methodology caused people to feel comforted, because when you ask, like, what should they know? Ask God, what should they know, or something. It's kind of like,
Well, what do you want them to know is the question.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like, that is a priming question that gives them hope that there is some ultimate being out there who cares about them and wants to help them. And those kinds of sensations make people feel comforted in the same way as kind of a placebo, which means in the moment it's very easy to understand why they wouldn't feel better, or why they would feel better, but it's unlikely that they would feel better at a constant rate in the future. And that's definitely something I'd be willing to test,
Yep.
but I would be willing to say
Yep.
that it's probably going to get the exact same results as all the other studies I've read on the topic.
What you just said is exactly true. That if that's all it was, it wouldn't have any reason to affect. You wouldn't expect the result to linger. You wouldn't expect to get any of those kinds of success rate. It would be more similar to chance. And that's why it's so notable. Somebody said here in the comments, 98% of the time, let's get going. Yeah, let's get going. Not just for you, TJump, but for everybody here. I just threw together a quick Quora page called Why Tom Should Become a Christian.quora.com. Quora is spelled Quora. Why Tom Should Become a Christian.quora.com. If anybody does want to go through this, wants to experience it for themselves, yeah, find me there, send me a private message or a comment. And I do this over Zoom, I do it over the phone, I do it face to face. Like I said, it really does work 99% of the time.
Sure, let's try it.
And
You can try it right now. Try it on me. Go ahead.
That we can. I just want to address two of those other questions. One person said, does it happen 10 years later? And yeah, the results are permanent. It's not something that you just, Robert Saget says, I have a 99% rate, but if I fail, it's because you didn't try. I'll also give you my $250 download payment. Now, let me make one thing clear. I don't make any money off it. Nothing that I do is charged for. Everything I give away is free. I haven't received a dime from anyone I've done transformation prayer with the past 5 years. If they want to make a donation, I tell them, like, give it to our food shelf. Like, don't give it to me, because the last thing I want is for people to think I'm trying to grift people out of money, or I'm trying to, like, that just has no place here. So no, I'm not going to ask for money ever from anybody doing this. Which, by the way, if you ever want to find somebody who claims to follow the work of Jesus but doesn't, look for anyone who's charging money for healing. I mean, Jesus said very clearly when he gave his disciples this power, freely you received, freely give. So if anyone is charging money for healing, you don't have to look for any further. Just turn your back on them. That's not. Oh, Blade Runner, how do I make money, Kyle? Our church is set up like a nonprofit. We have our regular donors, who would be the people tithing every Sunday morning, and they're donating because they like the work of the church and they want to support this work going forward. And those are people who choose to support it, just like you support a nonprofit. And just like a nonprofit, I get a set salary from the donations, which enables me to give counseling and whatever else I give away for free without charging a dime from anybody who receives it. ND Run, does he ever accept money? No, if people want to donate, I tell them give it to the food shelf or give it to somewhere else.
So you want to try it? Go ahead.
I do want to try it, and specifically with you, but I have two conditions.
Okay.
The first is that we do it either in person or over a Zoom meeting. The second is that you commit to a 2-hour session, because that's what I always do with everyone. It takes that long to explain it and to get people to realize this is not counseling, and I don't need people to analyze themselves, and that people just need to give honest answers to every question, and that's all that happens. And so
Okay.
what I'd like to do, doing it live, well, I want to do it with you, Tom, and then I'll give you the permission to talk about the experience with other people. I would like to do it privately, because the only key that is required for it to work is you giving honest answers. And it is very hard to give honest answers when you have a crowd of people watching and you know what their expectations of you are. I give counselor-client confidentiality to everyone who goes through this. So if we do a session, you would have freedom to talk about it by yourself. I would be bound by confidentiality not to talk about it unless you gave me the freedom to. But I would be happy to lead you through that, and then you can talk about it, about the experience with this crowd, however you would choose to.
Sure. Would you be willing to come back on after and talk about it together?
Sure.
Send me the
Mighty
super
Scarlet.
chat. E-font, $2 super chat. I'll take it. Yeah.
The only
So
one wants to save Tom's soul conditionally.
yes, send me money. Please send me money. So yeah, you send an email to Jeff. We can probably set that up for some time for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any other reasons? Because I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this again. The reason I picked transformation prayer out of any other example of this is not just because of my own personal experience with it. Again, I've seen it work thousands of times over the past 5 years. Again, with that 98, 95%, or 98, 99% effectiveness rate, but also because transformation prayer long predates me and is in about 170 countries around the world at last count, and has worked for millions and millions and millions of people in every cultural setting that you could expect. It's not just something that I've done. It's not something anecdotal to me. It's something so heavily tested and verified around the world. And it's, again, it operates mechanically. It's the supernatural power of God downloading truth to people's minds. That's, where's this Nobel Prize? I didn't invent it, so I wouldn't be eligible for it anyway.
Well, you would if you
Transformation.
demonstrated it. So if you could demonstrate it, you would win a Nobel Prize. So like Higgs boson, Higgs invented it, or Higgs theorized it, and the guys who discovered it won a joint Nobel Prize with him. So if you demonstrated it scientifically, you'd win a Nobel Prize.
I give that to Ed and Joshua Smith. They're the guys at the head of it. And demonstrating it is, like I said, easy to do, and it's been done in every culture millions of times. It is everywhere. Transformationprayer.org is the website. All the information is there. And again, this is open to anyone watching, whether it's now or whether it's later. I love these comments. I love the skepticism in it. But again, like I said, this is what I do. This is how I help people. And that's why people refer others to me. It's where the work is actually done. I do very little counseling. I do very little actually telling people stuff. If it's so easy, why hasn't it been demonstrated under laboratory conditions? It can be very easily. The problem is setting up. If you have somebody in Scotty, this is what he does, lies. Wonderful. I don't say anything at all. I just let God do it. 60% of the time, it works all the time. That's a great movie. The reason it works is because it's not me, and I don't have to know anything. And somebody asks, is it 2 hours of brainwashing? Is it like getting people in the mood for it? No, it works within 30 seconds. It doesn't have to be 2 hours. Somebody says, Kyle, aren't those other cultures praying to different gods? Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. You don't have to be a Christian for this to work. We're asking Jesus to speak every time, but it doesn't matter what the person receiving truth believes. Whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Buddhist, it doesn't matter, because God loves everyone. It's an experience universally across the cultures of the world. It's an experience universally across the worldviews of the world. It just works. And like the atheist I first mentioned, of course, the first time he experienced this, when we found a lie, God spoke to it. The anger was gone. The lie no longer felt true. The truth felt true. The first time he experienced that, he had the same question. Why isn't that just my imagination? Why isn't that just me speaking that to myself, making it happen? And I just told him, how long have you had it? How long have you had that anger? Has anything you've done accomplished that? And of course, he said no, nothing had. And we went through and we did the second time, we did the third time. And again, he's experiencing the transformation, he's agreeing it's happening. Why? How do I know this is God? How do I know this isn't just me? And I pointed out, all the while we talk about it and we process through it and he's feeling the anger and I'm asking him questions, the anger isn't getting lesser, the anger is growing hotter as we get to the heart of it. The only time the anger goes away and the only time the truth comes is when I pray that prayer and say, Lord, God, what do you want him to know? And he agreed. That's the beauty of it, and it's why I love doing it every day, and it's why I freely offer this to anyone watching. I never get tired of watching that moment where somebody feels something, the pain is hot, whether it's anger, whether it's doubt, whether it's depression, whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety. I've seen God heal it all. And
My
it's a moment.
interpretation would be like the vast majority of what you're saying is essentially identical to what most self-help gurus say, and the outcomes are similar to what they say as well. And so I think that what you're describing is something we know about in psychology, of certain kinds of psychological triggers that make people feel comforted and feel better under certain situations. But if you could demonstrate it's more effective than the ones we know about psychologically, I'd consider that evidence. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm happy to test it and we can find out.
Mm-hmm. It is, as I've said, the effectiveness rate is through the roof. It doesn't correlate to chance. Scotty says, show the evidence. Yeah, that's why I invite anyone to go through it. As long as you're willing to give me 2 hours to explain the process and begin going through it, you can experience it for yourself. Robert Saget says, "What's my criterion for success or failure? That the lie-based belief producing the pain no longer feels true. The pain's gone, the anger's gone, and it stays that way. It's not something that happens momentarily. It's not something that withers away after 15 minutes. It's something that endures months and years down the road." I'll give you one other story. There was a guy who was going
What does it mean when
overseas.
you say the lie-based belief
Yes.
doesn't feel true or something? What does that mean?
Yeah. So from the example of the woman I talked about a little while ago, that one of her lie-based beliefs was, I have to hold on to this anger because it's the only way I have to get back at this guy. Because of course he had left 40 years prior. She had no immediate interaction with him. So it's a lie-based belief. I have to hold on to my anger because it's the only way to get back at this guy. Well, she's not actually getting back at him, but it feels true in that moment. If I give up this anger, I'm giving up my only way to feel like I'm doing something back toward him.
Well,
So that's
what would be like a lie-based belief for me or something? Because I don't think
Yep.
any of the causes of my anger are lie-based.
If your people want to Google something called the TPM map, TPM, short for Transformation Prayer Ministry, TPM map, that has about 12 questions. And those 12 questions are designed to find exactly that. So for you, any negative emotion just about rises from something like that.
Okay.
I mean,
I
anger can be caused by
feel depression, sadness thing. It's usually not anger. Usually like depression, sadness.
Yeah, depression and sadness definitely result from lies. Anger that remains has some lie-based element to it. In the immediacy of anger of something happening to me, I can feel angry, just completely justified by what's happening in front of me. Okay, but if 5 years from now I'm still angry about that event, something's gone wrong. If I'm
So
still
how does
yeah,
my depression caused by a lie? Because I think it's caused by brain chemistry. I don't
certainly
think
the
that's a
depression
lie.
is a complicated variant issue. There are so many things feeding into it, and I'm not going to paint with a broad brush and say all depression is from a lie. That's not what I'm saying. But if you believe a lie like I'm worthless and no good, and you believe it, and suppose your dad told it to you every day growing up, you're just worthless, you're no good, you'll never amount to anything. You believe that day in and day out. Well, believing that would cause you to feel depressed. I'm not saying all depression results from that, just as a general example. If you believe a lie that I'm worthless and no good, that's not going to make you feel good. That's going to make you feel bad. And believing that every day
Sure.
of your life is going to. So that's one of the beliefs that comes up a lot. Feelings of worthlessness, feeling of no good, just offering up that to God and letting God speak to that, and letting the sadness and the depression from that break and the person feels the opposite for the first time.
Well, so
I
I would
see
say
that.
that I feel depressed because I can't achieve the things I value.
Yeah.
Literally, or not that I cannot, like in future tense, like literally, I have not been able to during the things I've tried. I've failed to achieve the things I value. That makes me depressed. Why is that? Where's the lie in that?
That thought wouldn't be the lie, it would be underneath that. Something more like my self-worth can only be, or like I am only worthwhile if I accomplish what I want to accomplish.
I wouldn't say that. I'd say I only get this dopamine rush or this emotional sensation when I achieve these particular things and not from other things.
Yeah.
Why would that be
So
a lie?
therefore, if you're not getting those things, I will never get that dopamine rush.
It'd be more like inductive. I have never gotten a dopamine rush from other things. I have gotten it from this thing. So this is the only thing I know that gives me the dopamine rush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where would be the lie in that?
And the lie in what you just said there, that nothing of that is a lie. And I wouldn't present any of that to God because there's no lie in what you just described. That's just the flat truth. You get a dopamine rush from this, you haven't gotten it from other things. So that's just straight truth. There's not a lie in that. If you're depressed because you're not getting that, the lie might be there is no possible dopamine rush for me comparable to this. Therefore, if I'm not achieving this, I'm left without it. I'll never be able to get it unless I accomplish what I set my mind to, what I desired.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I'd just say that I have no evidence of anything else giving me the rush, and so it's not like I haven't explored a significant number of things, and so I don't put my faith in other things. Like it's possible there are, but I don't say it's impossible. but I don't see the lie. My belief is this is the only thing I know of that makes me happy. I consistently feel unhappy, generally, and only when I have this particular thing I feel happy. I have found no other examples of that, but those are all just factual claims about experiences of my life. Like none of that's based on a lie. That's just experiences.
Yeah.
So I don't know why any of my depression would be based on a lie there.
But why, when you don't get this dopamine burst, are you so unhappy?
Wait, say that again.
Why, when you don't accomplish these things, you don't get that dopamine burst? Why does that make you unhappy?
Because of the way my brain is structured.
But it goes beyond that. We're not just saying that when I don't feel dopamine, I don't feel happy. It's when I don't accomplish these things, I don't feel the happiness. So why is it that not accomplishing these things?
Because only those things, as far as I know, create dopamine release in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's because of some traumatic experience. It's just because I have high function autism. People with high function autism have a special interest. This is my special interest, and therefore the way my brain is developed has been centered around this one thing, and so it has nothing to do with like traumas or beliefs. It's just I have autism.
Yeah. I love reading these comments. Pseudoscience Kyle, I'll adopt that moniker later. It would seem, if this is still what you want to explore when we have our little session, the questions I would ask would be centered around that feeling of why personal significance is tied to accomplishment. But yes, there's some connection to autism, but it's not just you were held captive to your brain chemistry. It's at some level you believe that I have to accomplish to be happy, that I have to do in order to feel good about myself. And that if I don't accomplish, if I don't do, I cannot feel good about myself.
Well,
That would be the avenue for exploration.
I don't feel any of that though. So it's not like self-worth is not like a thing I feel exactly in that context. For me, it's just when I'm eating candy, my tongue tastes good or whatever, and when I'm not eating candy, my tongue does not taste good. It's not about I feel worth when my tongue tastes good or something. So it's not like my self-worth is when I have this thing. Like obviously, I'd say my self-worth is more like my ability to achieve the things I value is someone's worth. Their ability, their worth is can they achieve the things that make them happy, and if they can't, then they have lower self-worth, because I measure worth in a quantitative sense of like your worth is literally what you can use in and of yourself to achieve the things you value. But I don't the way you're saying someone has self-worth is more like internal self-worth or something. Like can you internally see yourself as having self-worth or something? But for me it's purely quantitative, not qualitative in that sense. So it wouldn't make any sense for me to believe I don't have worth because I can't achieve something or something along those lines.
Yeah. You've externalized self-worth.
I don't think so. Because it's like, for me, the things that make me happy are external, not internal. There's never been any examples of any internal things that have ever made me happy. Internal does not do anything for me because of my autism. And therefore, whatever the things you value are, whether it's external or internal, your ability to achieve those things is what gives you happiness in life, and just by definition. And so the worth of an individual in their life is going to be measured by their ability to achieve, as in not necessarily like accomplish, but just get the things that make them happy. And so if it's internal comfort, quiet space, or whatever, meditation, relationship with God or whatever, those may be really easy to get. And so if those are the things that give you value, your life relatively would have a high amount of value because you'd be able to gain the amount of things you need happy pretty easily. So you'd have an overall happier life than someone who had something that's very rare or hard to find, like someone who's in a desert and they need water to feel happy. And so they have to do a lot of work to find water. Otherwise, they're just going to be like dehydrated and dying. They're going to have a much harder time finding worth in life, because what it takes for them to have worth in life is something that's harder for them to attain than someone who values something internally. But I don't think that simply telling them that they have self-worth without water is ever going to make them happy. Like, no, I don't think that's going to work. I think they need water or food or whatever. And so if your needs are um, necessarily external things, because that's what you're missing is external things, then how you define self-worth wouldn't apply, because you seem to define it inherently internally and seem to discount the fact that some people do need external things to be happy.
Yeah, the way you just described that is I think we describe it differently, but it gets to the same thing in the end. That it's what people believe about them and what they need that drives their activity, that drives their satisfaction thing. It's the belief
Sure.
that if I accomplish this thing, that's going to make me happy. Well, that belief drives me to accomplish this thing because I'm chasing that. But if I have a completely different belief that I need to, you know, throw away all external accomplishment and I just need to focus on myself, and so I pursue that belief, that what you're describing is these beliefs that we follow do uh, drive us. And some of these
Well,
beliefs are based in reality and some of them are not. And usually the ones that are not based in reality are the ones that are producing the greatest kinds of pain, whether it's fear or whether it's anger or whether it's anxiety or whatever else. And those are the ones that we go after with transformation prayer. Like if you ask God to speak to a belief that's true, God doesn't adjust that. He doesn't change it. Nothing happens because that is true. And so I don't go after those. I go after the ones that uh, do not reflect reality, the ones that are producing pain. So take the example of someone whose dad said to them, "You're worthless and no good. You'll never amount to anything." It's true that their dad said that. So if you ask God to speak to that belief that my dad, never accepted me, my dad doesn't think I'll amount to anything, well, God's not going to correct that because it's a true statement. Yeah, that's what your dad said and that's what you believed. The problem is, what have you come to believe about yourself? Do you
well,
believe that you're?
let's say somebody's like a slave in one of the third world nations, and they're depressed because they can't escape slavery.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think any of their beliefs or pain are caused by lies there. So, what would you do in that case?
I would say the depression of being trapped in slavery is absolutely a truth-based pain. That wouldn't be, you couldn't correct that without causing a delusion. Uh, but there would be various other things. If you feel like I will never have worth in anybody's eyes because I'm just beaten up as a slave, that belief can be adjusted. God can speak to that and say you have worth and I accept you in my eyes. What I see about you is so much more than what anybody else sees about you. That belief that I'm worthless because I'm a slave is a lie and can be corrected.
Okay, but so your method won't help anybody if they have accurate beliefs about something externally that causes them pain. And
If you have perfectly accurate beliefs about everything in the world, there's nothing to correct, so there's nothing to be transformed. I've never met that person.
well, I think most like homeless people say the reason I'm depressed because I don't have a home. Most people who are
Yes.
starving are saying the reason I'm depressed because I don't have food. People who are
Hmm.
thirsty say the reason I'm depressed I don't have any water.
Yep.
Those kinds of things are fairly accurate. Like a lot of people say they're depressed because they don't have enough money, and that's true.
Yep.
There's
And if any of those people came to our church, we'd lead them to a food shelf. We'd help them find shelter. We'd help them find clothes. We'd take care of all those physical needs first, because you're exactly right. Those needs need to be addressed first. But those aren't the kind of things you address through transformation prayer. You would take the homeless person who is on the street and is depressed because they don't have a home or food or money. We'd give them food. We'd give them a place to stay. We try to help them find a job. And then once all those immediate needs are taken care of, then we go after their how they feel about themselves. When you just sit down and you think about yourself, how do you feel about yourself? Depressed because I've made nothing of my life. Okay, why does that make you feel depressed? Because I always dreamed I would aspire to these things and I never did. Okay, well, how does that make you feel? It makes me feel like I'm worthless. Okay, why does it make you feel like I'm worthless? Because my dad always told me if I didn't accomplish anything with my life, I'm no good. I shouldn't be here. I'm just a bother and a waste of time. Okay, how does that make you feel? Worthless. Okay, so just right there, that feels true that you're worthless. Yeah, I hate it, but it feels true. All right, Lord, what do you want him to know? And then I step back, I let God do his thing. 2 minutes later, does it still feel true that you're worthless? And for the first time, the person says, I can remember that feeling true, but it doesn't. I can look at that and I can just see that I'm repeating my dad's words in my ears, but those aren't the truth. That's what he thought, but it's not the truth. And I see that moment of transformation where a person goes from a lie that's held them captive to the truth. I see that happen daily. I see it happen on average twice a day, and on average, people get about 3 to 5 of these truths per session. Now, it just happens so regularly, so continuously. Like I said, it's the supernatural power of God transforming a person's mind in seconds, but it's mechanical, it's predictable, it's usable. It's not something you have to wonder whether or not God's going to come through this time. It just happens.
Well, there's a couple things there. One is that I wanted to mention earlier, you said the desires guide our actions, but the desires are usually a result of the things that cause you happiness. So if you experience happiness from one thing, your brain, the neuroplasticity in your brain tells you that that thing will cause you happiness in the future, and it grows, and if something causes you pain, the same thing. And so most of your desires are built by your brain from your experiences to lead you towards the things that do make you feel happy because they have in the past. It's not like you've had a belief and then you started pursuing the belief for no reason. It's usually you had an experience and you built a belief from the experience. So it's not like the desires themselves don't really change anything. So like if I changed my desires to want popcorn or something,
Mhm.
getting popcorn wouldn't make me happy because the way my brain works is such that the things that make me happy are determined by my neuroplasticity, which is determined by my autism. And popcorn is not that thing. So even if I changed my desires to desire popcorn, it would not in any way make me happy to get popcorn. So simply having desires doesn't do anything unless you already have the neuroplastic brain structure for that thing to cause a dopamine release in the first place. Desires don't inherently cause the things you're desiring to make you happy. The things that make you happy are something deeper. But I wanted to go back
Agree with
to
you
like,
there. Yeah, I'm not pushing at that point.
but like for me, all of the things you're describing are silly emotional things that most normal people feel that I don't feel. So like people say, I feel worthless because my dad said I'm worthless. Like, I don't feel that. I wouldn't care. I would care nothing. Words literally mean nothing to me. Words people say mean nothing to me. I don't care about words. I care
Yep.
about physical interaction consequences in the world. So if I can achieve the thing I value, literally nothing anybody says matters to me whatsoever. And so I
Exactly.
measure my self-worth by the actual physical interactions in the world of what I can or cannot achieve, independent of any kind of thoughtness, intentions, desire stuff. Like that stuff is just foreign to me psychologically. So
Mhm.
um, all of my worth and all of my happiness is directly correlated to my ability to achieve the things I value externally, independent of any
Yeah.
subjective, introspective thoughts.
Mhm. Yep. And that's you. The thing I love
Yes.
about TPM is I don't need to analyze everybody. I don't need to figure out what your diagnosis is. As somebody asked, do I believe mental illness is real? Yeah, I believe physical illness is real. I believe mental illness is real. I believe people are in a lot of pain. And I believe we need to heal that pain as best we can. The thing I love about TPM is I don't need to try to diagnose who you are or why your brain is different from other people's. All we need to do is find the lie-based belief causing whatever negative emotion you're feeling. Let God speak to it, and it just works. Tim clarified autism isn't mental illness. Yes, Tim, I agree with you. I'm sorry if I implied in any way, shape, or form that autism is a mental illness. No, forgive me for that. If that came through it anyway, I'm sorry for that.
It's a mental
Um,
condition. It's close enough. Same thing.
yes. Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm lost on these because the examples you give of false beliefs, I
Mhm.
have none of those kinds of beliefs that you're talking about.
Right.
I am worthless because of someone said so, or I am worthless because I can never do X, or I am worthless because of these kinds
Yep.
of illogical, fallacious reasoning things based off of emotional generalizations. I don't have those. I'm
Yeah.
strictly like I am unhappy because I don't get enough hot blondes, and because hot blondes
Yes.
make me happy. So when I get hot blondes, I'm happy. Don't know of anything else that does, and that's just a fact. I don't.
Mhm.
There's no extra beliefs tied into that. It's like I'm happy when I'm with hot blondes, and I
Everybody
don't
is
have hot
different.
blondes, not happy. And so I don't like.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out what in my belief structure would be a kind of false belief that you could talk about
Yep.
to apply to your
Generally,
method, and I don't know of any.
the way we always begin is looking at negative emotion. And either it's something that's presenting immediately, or I can just say, like, look back at the last week. What's something that triggered you, that triggered a negative emotional reaction in you? and it can be anything. I never predict with people what you're going to, what emotion it's going to be, what lie-based belief it is. I don't even try to predict. My job is to ask questions, and that's it. Um, and it works just fine because God's the one doing the work. I don't even need to work on it. In your case, I would just say, yeah, think back over the last week. What's made you angry? What's made you anxious? What's made you depressed?
Anger, losing at chess makes me angry. Losing consistently at chess makes me angry. Makes me depressed is prolonged periods of times not being with attractive women. That's what makes me depressed. And sad. I think those are the same, sad and depressed.
Yeah,
Those are the only two I can think of off the top of my head.
yeah. And those would be two wonderful places to begin. And it may be exactly where we begin when we set this up, because there's a belief underlying that. Why should it, or why does it make you feel sad not to be with beautiful women? What's the belief
There are no
determining that?
beliefs. There's no beliefs there. That's not a belief-based thing. It's just it's a fact. It's like when I touch a stove, it's hot. I don't believe it's hot. It's just literally a sensation that's caused by my body. So my body literally causes the sensation of sadness or depression because I don't get dopamine unless I'm with attractive women, as far as I'm aware. And so there's no belief there. I have zero beliefs associated with that.
You're applying it to brain chemistry and neuroplasticity. I'm applying it to belief. I think we're talking about the same thing with different language. You can illustrate it by looking at somebody else who, is very similar, is a man who wants to be with beautiful women, but not being with one does not cause him sadness. And it's the beliefs or the neuroplasticity, as you're phrasing it, about how he views himself. That, yeah, this is something I want, but not having it doesn't make me feel sad. Or, yeah, this is something I want, and not having it makes me feel sad. Or there's a difference in belief, or there's a difference in brain structure that's producing the different outcomes based on the same input.
Well, I mean, beliefs are brain structure, so I understand that part, but I'm not like I can have no subsequent beliefs about my self-worth regarding this, and just know that when I get this, I'm made happy, and when I don't, I'm not happy. And there's no beliefs there, no additional beliefs there about why is it the case that this makes me happy. It's just is. It's an experience. I don't have like a belief that I need hot women to be happy or something. I have the experience that the way my brain works, hot women do make me happy, and I don't know of anything else that does. And so there's not like some underlying belief there that is false that undergirds any
What
of
you
it.
just described is the underlying belief, that I believe that being in the company of attractive women makes me feel happy. That's the belief. I didn't say it.
But that's like just a fact. I'm not following. That wouldn't be like a
It's a
false
fact for
belief.
you because it's a belief that guides you. Suppose there's
Well,
somebody else who's
no.
incredibly nervous around beautiful women. They want to be, but they're incredibly nervous because they fear they've never had it. They
Sure.
fear that they'll mess up. For them, being in the presence of attractive women makes them feel nervous, makes them feel anxious. For you, not
Sure.
being in the presence of a woman makes them feel sad. For them, not being in the presence of a woman makes them feel relieved, even though they
Yeah, but
want to
that's
be.
not because of beliefs. Beliefs don't cause that. The neurology of the brain structure causes that. So even if I had zero beliefs, like if I was,
Same thing, different label.
what? No, I don't think so. So like there's two separate parts of the brain. One is justification, the reasons for something, and one is the actual cause of the thing. So there's a number of studies in psychology that um, cause people to ask questions. Like they give you two pictures. They give you a set of pictures and say, pick your favorite. And then give you another set of pictures and say, pick your favorite. Another set of pictures, pick your favorite. Like 10 pictures. And then they take the pictures and they take some of the ones you did not pick, things that you didn't like, and they put them in with the pictures you did pick. And they ask you for each one, why did you
Mhm.
pick this picture? And so for the ones they did pick, they can like pick why they like it. I like the blonde color of whatever. But and then they get to the ones they didn't pick, and they'll make up a reason of why they picked it, even though they didn't pick it. And so there's this
Yeah,
part of the brain that will make justifications for things based on emotion, but are not in any way tied into the reasons that you either did or did not pick the thing you liked. And so even if this is one of the
right.
pictures you did not like, you did not pick it, if you
Mhm.
ask, well, why did you pick this? You're going to come up with a post hoc ex post facto reason for why you picked it, even though it has literally nothing to do with why you picked it because you didn't pick it. And so the psychological questions of these underlying beliefs have literally nothing to do with the actual emotional responses that you have from the thing. So if you were like literally wiped all of your memories and you had nothing, but we went back and figured out that you liked cheeseburgers and we gave you a cheeseburger, you would feel happy even though you had no beliefs about cheeseburgers whatsoever. Like you'd be like you never saw a cheeseburger. If you had it, you would feel good because your brain had already become accustomed to that kind of sensation and had developed neuroplastic connections to send dopamine under the conditions that these sensations were achieved. So the same thing would apply to me with attractive women. If you wiped all of my memories and I was with attractive women, I'd be happy, even if I had zero beliefs about it whatsoever.
Yeah, the way you're describing belief and the way you're describing neuroplasticity, you're dividing two things that are the same. I mean, the beliefs that you have, the things that you think about, the things that you meditate on daily shape your brain. The
Well, how can you
If
have
you
false
believe,
neuroplasticity? Like that doesn't, like you can have false beliefs, but you can't really have false neuroplasticity. That can't, doesn't work.
like one of the things I do is I work with alcoholics and addicts, and if an alcoholic believes that drinking alcohol is the only thing that is going to take away my pain, and they believe that day in and day out, and that's the reason why they keep reaching for the bottle, that is impressed in the brain. Your brain develops pathways that when I feel pain, this is how I respond to it. And like you said, even if you wipe your memories, that pathway is still ingrained in the brain because it's been meditated on, it's been believed day in and day out, and your brain has adapted to that. It can still be worked on. I've worked with people addicted to everything you can imagine, from alcohol to pornography to whatever else. And when you get to the lie-based belief, in this case, that alcohol is the only thing that takes away my pain, and I ask God to speak to that, and God removes that and transforms the brain instantly, the power of that belief is gone. Even though it's been something ingrained in them for years, the power of that can be broken in a minute. And that's what I've witnessed year in and year out. It's what people witness all over the world through transformation prayer. Those pathways that you've built up in your brain through belief can be changed that quickly, which is one of the key differences between transformation prayer and all the other kinds of therapy you mentioned. We're not talking about a slow, gradual change. We're not talking about teaching somebody better ways to deal with your pain. We're talking about instant transformation, that what felt true for years, that I have to reach this bottle every time I feel pain, now just doesn't even feel true. I can't make myself feel true or make myself feel like that's true anymore. It's instantaneous transformation. It's why it's called transformation prayer, because the proof is that instantaneous. That lie no longer feels true. The
Well, we
pain
can
coming
test it
from it no
and
longer feels true
it'll be interesting. The overgiver asks Kyle, why is the belief I am worthless a lie, false belief?
because you're not.
I think he was looking for a little bit more than that.
Yes. I'm trying to formulate this. I watched your video on the differences between how theists and atheists regard truth and define truth. And the first thought that came to mind is, of course, you're not worthless because God, you are of worth to Him, that He declares your worth, that He made you in His image, and to God you have ultimate worth. And the problem is that then I'm stepping into that theist, top-down definition of truth. But even if
ah,
I,
I was
yeah,
wondering, like, I made a video on different definitions of truth, like the top down thing. I got it. Now I know what you're talking about.
yeah. But even if I go with more of the atheist definition of truth, where truth is what is apparently true about the world around us and building it from the bottom up, I can say that even if I've never met you, like you are worthwhile to me. Like if you and I were in the same room and somebody came in with a gun threatening you, like I would not hesitate to get in front of you and get between you and the attacker, because if you're a person, if you're alive, you have value to me. And so it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, just because you're alive, you have value to me. And that's like practically the way this works out. My wife, for about 10 years, ran our food shelf here at the church. And the thing I just love about it is everybody needs food. It's such a universal way to love people, to attribute worth to people. If someone's hungry, we give them food. There's no theological test. You don't have to be a Christian. You can have never set foot in a church before in your life. That's okay. We still want to love you. You still matter to us. We'll give you food. We want to hear your name. We want to hear your story. Why are you here? We want to build a relationship and have people come back month after month so we can just get to know you. Because to us, Everybody matters. And so why is I am worthless a lie or a false belief? Because you do matter. You matter to God, but even if you don't believe in God, you matter to me, and I can demonstrate that in these ways.
Gotcha. Anybody else got any questions from the chat? Did you any other chat things you wanted to respond to?
Yeah, somebody said you were only happy with the transformation prayer experience if you desire the experience. But that's what I love. I get so many people in there who doubt that it's going to work, and I've got several people in there who are convinced it is not going to work, and it still works. It's what I love about it. I'm doing nothing but asking questions. God's the one who accomplishes the work.
Overgiver asks, Kyle, how do you know God? How do you know God care for us?
Yes. Again, I'll try to use both the top-down and the bottom-up approaches to answer that question. The top-down approach of how do you know that God cares for us, according to the scriptures, would be one, that God created you, that he gave you meaning and purpose for your life that nobody else can fulfill, that he has unique designs and intents for you that you were specifically created to do. As the scriptures say, that he determines the times and places of your life. He determines specific good things that only you can do. But somebody says, show your face, Kyle. Yeah, we tried 3 different times, and the delay was horrible. So that's why I'm.
Yeah, his face is at the very beginning of the stream. You can see it. So it's.
Yeah, I apologize for the starter when you go back to look at it. So yeah, the top-down answer again being, how do you know God cares for us? Because he created you in his image, because he loves you, because everything the scriptures say, every good and perfect gift comes from above. So every good thing that you've enjoyed came from his hand. The bottom down approach of just looking around you.
Did you cut out?
Again, I would go first to the what? Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
I would go first to the love of other people. Again, like what we do in our food shelf. That the value and worth of every person when you get to know them. I haven't found a single worthless person. I haven't found a single person who is not worth the time it takes to get to know. When you drill into every person's heart, the things you find, uh, every person thinks they're the hero of their story and then fears that they're secretly the villain. But when you take time to get to know people and you can just appreciate who they are uniquely and how uniquely this person is designed and created and what they can do that no one else can do, it's just amazing. So, how do you know that God cares for us? Because when you start to care for other people and you live your life like everyone deserves to be cared for, it just resonates. It just clicks. There is no better way to live your life than by assuming everybody matters and everybody can be cared for. And when you start treating people like that, life just becomes amazing. So that's both my top down and my bottom up answer to that question.
Gotcha. Next question. If God is all powerful, why did he choose to rest on the 7th day when he doesn't need to rest since he's omnipotent?
He rested from work. He didn't rest to recharge from exhaustion. Rest in the sense of ceasing from work, not rest in the sense of I did too much. I need to lie back and catch my breath.
Gotcha. Ask him, how do you discern prayer from chance or coincidence?
Exactly. And that's the difference between someone feeling better by chance or coincidence, and the difference between someone feeling better by prayer is that the transformation prayer that I do, like I said, works 99% of the time, 98 to 99% in that range. It is so regular and so predictable about how often God works in there. Chance or coincidence doesn't come anywhere near that. And again, I don't want to present this like I am super special and like you need to come to me because I'm some super healing spiritual guru. No, not at all. If you go on the transformationprayer.org website, anyone can do it. I mean, it is simple. The guys who have been at the front of this have been doing it for 35 years. They've refined it. They've made it simple to learn. Anybody can do it. Nothing special about me. It's why I don't take any money. It's why I don't ask people to commit to anything other than just the time to do it. because there's nothing special about me that I'm able to do this. Anyone can do it.
All right. Kyle, could transformation prayer experience be a psychosomatic phenomenon?
If so, it is the most powerful one we have ever discovered. I mentioned that I work with addiction. There was a guy who came in who was going overseas in 3 weeks, and he just had some things he really wanted to clean up if there was any chance at all. And there was one particular thing he was addicted to, and he had struggled with it every day of his adult life, or any day since he became a physically mature teenager. So you can imagine. Um, and so we just dug into it and just the reasons behind it. And it was questions like, in the moment when you feel like you need to do this, what do you believe would happen if you don't? And just simple questions like that to expose the lies behind it, and then just ask God to speak to it. And that session took about an hour 45 minutes from what I remember. He came back in the next week and said, "This is the first week of my life that I have never struggled with that." It wasn't even like days went by and he remembered that he hadn't struggled with it. Something that had been a daily struggle became so out of mind that he would go days before he even remembered that he used to struggle with it. And that's what it does. Transformation prayer can work that powerfully, that rapidly. And so how do I know it's not a psychosomatic phenomenon? Because it is so much more powerful than any other documented psychosomatic phenomenon.
Gotcha.
James Horner says, "Nothing special about me, but 99% success rate." Yeah, anyone who does it experiences that. That's why it's in over 170 countries around the world. That's why there are tens of millions of people who have gone through it. I mean, the Ed and Joshua Smith, who are the two guys at the head of Transformation Prayer, they do an open Zoom call every Monday, I think twice during the day, and you can just go on that call and talk with them. If you have any questions about this, you can just go ask those guys directly. They are as open as you could want to be, and they release all this stuff for free. They're not making money off it. They're not trying to fleece anyone for it. They didn't even try to push it into all the countries around the world. It was just taken there by people who had experienced it and wanted to use it. So why is there? So yeah, there really is nothing special about me, even though it does work that well. It's what the process is. The power of God is that reliable.
Okay. Felix asks, why would it not work if it's truly held belief? Like for other religions, it does work. People with faith can stop smoking cold turkey, quit other addictions or problems with some faith.
Yeah, I never try to tell people to quit cold turkey. I never tell people what to do. I just deal with the beliefs behind doing what they're doing.
I think his question has a follow-up. Like, all that faith stuff works with other religions also, quitting addiction, etc. Just listen to Mormons or Islamists or Buddhists. They say they have the same applied effects as your therapy thing, prayer.
Yeah. I've looked into that because that's, of course, the question. If anyone can do it, then why isn't everyone doing it? And the answer is that I haven't found anything that works like this, that works that quickly, that takes something you've believed your entire life and exposes the falsity of it and helps you believe what's actually the truth and removes the pain instantaneously without me having to say or do or coach or have you visualize anything.
I think he's asking, like, why would it not, the same thing not work for these other religions doing something similar?
Yeah. Well, if you're willing to ask Jesus to speak, it does work. Like I said, it works with atheists. It works with people of any other faith as long as you're willing to go through it.
Well,
But
I think his question is why do you think the same thing applied to a different God would not work?
because I haven't found it to. Um,
That's fair. Overgiver asks, why should we trust the scriptures?
Now that is not a conversation, or that's not a question to ask at the end of the conversation. You can have let's come back and talk for 2 hours about that question.
Gotcha. Tim asked, if God created us, how is he not us?
Good question. Genesis 1 says that God created us in his image, and then a few chapters later it describes human children being created in the image of their parents, which tells us what God means by that God does create us as his children in his image. So if God created us, how is he not us? Um, I have a son. I'm not him. I created him in my image. I think my wife had a bit more work to do in creating him, but nevertheless, we are his parents. We created him in our image. He is not us. He's in our image, but he is not us.
Gotcha. 21st century Rambo, can it work without questioning?
Not that I found. I mean, the thing that sets transformation prayer apart from every other exploration of this is that one sentence prayer that, Lord, what do you want him to know? There are other systems that help you find the beliefs, behind your pain. There are other systems that help you explore, your trauma and why you feel what you feel. But the thing that sets TPM apart from those is that question, God, what do you want them to know right here in the midst of it? And then the transformation that happens instantaneously because of that. So can it work without that question? No, because that's what makes it work.
All right. How do you know it's God changing your life?
Yeah. I'll go back to that atheist I talked about before because that's a direct question he asked in the second session. How do I, he has said, I'm experiencing transformation. I can admit that, but how do I know this is God and not just me? And I just pointed out the transformation you're experiencing is only happening when we ask God to speak. It's not happening when we're processing your anger. It's not happening when I'm asking these questions about what happened. It's not happening when you're telling me about it. It's not happening when you're feeling it. That transformation is only happening in that moment when we say, all right, Lord, what do you want him to know? So how do I know it's God changing your life? Because it happens when you ask God to do it.
Gotcha. Can Kyle speak to a session that wasn't successful? If so, to what does he attribute the failure?
Yes, I can. There was a man who came in because his friends wanted him to. He had no personal interest in it. I explained the process to him. He said he was willing to sit through it. But when we got to like asking the questions and uh, really digging into the things, he had no interest to. So it didn't work in that case because he didn't want it to work, and he was very open about the fact that he didn't even want to. He was there sitting in my office because his friends wanted him to, but he didn't want to. I asked him, imagine like a door. Would you be willing to open it just a tiniest crack just to see if there's a possibility that it might work? And he said no. So that's why I only say 99% successful, because there is that 1% of people who just, Dave Mill says it's his fault. No, it's not his fault. Like we tried and it failed and therefore it's his fault. No, he didn't even want to do it. So I know what Dave Mills is saying there, because there are so many people who try to pray for people, and if it doesn't work, you blame the person you're praying for. That's atrocious. Blaming someone you're trying to help is just horrible.
Efont asks, Kyle, what if one of your patient's true desires and happiness is not torturing other people, is in torturing other people? Do you judge the people for prayer? Do you judge people you pray for?
Yeah. The amazing thing, when I started doing this, for the first 100 or 200 cases, I was always like, had my Bible ready, like make sure that whatever people hear matches up with the scriptures. And after about 200 or 300 times where everything people heard was completely consistent with the scriptures, I just, uh, I stopped worrying about it, and I just let God do his thing. So do I judge the people I pray for? No, I leave them in God's hands. And I have dealt with people who have, I don't think it was specifically torturing, but that same thing where they got pleasure from hurting other people. Um, and the amazing thing to watch God deal with those people is that first he deals with his love for them, which is never where I expect it to go, but that's usually where God does start. That the first things he says are that he loves them, which often leads to tears. And then he begins dealing with their behaviors and how they are treating other people. And again, this is not me leading them to anything. I'm not saying anything other than just asking the same questions like, how does this make you feel? Why do you feel that way? Does this lie feel true? All right, Lord, what do you want them to know? So I'm not priming the pump at all with, saying God loves you or anything. I just let God do that. But I find that usually with these people who take pleasure in harming others, it's usually coming out of some belief they have about themselves. And God speaks to that person first, his love for them first, then he deals with how they treat others. And yes, I have seen people completely turn around and go to the people they've hurt, ask for their forgiveness, and live a completely different life afterwards.
Tim asks, if God wasn't real, would Kyle still attend church, give food, etc.?
Heck no. 1 Corinthians 15. If Jesus is not raised from the dead, Christianity is worthless.
Dave asks, what qualifications do you have, if any?
Good question. I attended seminary at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois. That's a 4-year degree where they teach you all the basics: counseling, Greek and Hebrew, preaching, leadership, administration. It's a practical degree, so it's designed to equip you for all the work that ministry requires. As far as transformation prayer goes, it's just going to that website, transformationprayer.org, and just working through the materials they have there. Like I said, anyone can learn it, anyone can begin applying it. And yeah, so as far as transformation prayer goes, it's more the experience of anything.
Super chat from Ozen. He said it somehow changes the physical structure of the brain within seconds, like his son by God. Should be simple to test.
It is.
Okay, have to test it. Can you falsify the process?
I would assume so. If you want to, let's see who asked that. Robert Cummings. Give me an example of like something you would like falsified or how you're thinking of that.
I think like falsification is a criterion in science that you can say, if my theory does work, this will happen. If this doesn't happen under these conditions, then it's false, and therefore I'm wrong. Something like that.
Yeah. In that case, it would just be you go through the situation and nothing happens. So yeah, that would be falsification.
What didn't you say there was one case that it didn't work? At least one.
Yeah, that was just because the guy didn't want to go through it. It wasn't because we tried it and it failed.
Gotcha.
Somebody says
Everyone,
Kylie is so needy. I actually feel sorry for him. That's
do you
wonderful to think.
believe people can transform their lives for the better without prayer?
Absolutely.
Okay. Facts and conspiracy. Many other religions also have comparable success rates for healing, helping people to feel better. Does that mean their gods are also true?
They do not have comparable success rates for transforming people instantaneously. And I've looked
Okay.
into that extensively. And no, there's nothing else that comes close.
What does he think of the studies that show prayer works at the same rate as chance or worse?
Well, again, this isn't like somebody sitting across the table from me and I'm saying, "Dear God, please make them better." It's all I'm doing is helping the person find the belief, giving rise to the pain. And once we found it, it's just, Lord, what do you want them to know? So I'm not praying that God does anything for them in that moment other than speak. I just leave it in God's hands. And again, the rate of success that we see, that I'm seeing, that the TPM people are seeing around the world is extremely high.
Okay, so Felix Graff says, so basically he claims it works better to change your life with Jesus instead of other religions. I think you even said it doesn't work with other religions or something.
Yeah, I've never seen it work by asking any other religious figure to speak. No.
Blue
60-second
blow me up.
skeptic. Go ahead.
Blow me up asks, does God have a divine plan, and how does prayer change the plan?
I love that people are asking these questions at the end of the conversation when it's like we could talk for 2 hours about that. But just the 30-second answer. On the first page of the Bible, Genesis 1, after God creates the world and creates humanity, his purpose statement for humanity is let them have dominion over the world, over our personal lives. That the intention for God, his divine plan, is to give humans dominion, to rule our own lives, to steward this world. And so God does have a divine plan, yes, but that does not mean that he is sovereignly ordaining every second of whatever you do. It's he's giving you sovereignty and control to see what you will do with that, which has an interesting overlap, TJump, with your theory of morality, that it's our personal will and volition that is good and anything hindering that is bad. I'll just leave that there. We can talk about that more later if you want to.
Something that really works whether or not you want it to. What else besides TPM is predicated on?
Mm-hmm.
Don't quite understand the question.
Yeah. I can address the first part. Something that really works whether or not you want it to. Yeah, I've experienced transformation prayer work on people who did not expect it to work, and even the atheist who came and did not want it to work, it worked on him. So it does work whether or not you want it to. What else is TPM predicated on? If you go to either transformationprayer.org or whytomshouldbecomechristian.quora.com, there's an introduction to TPM where it tells you how it came about. The guy who developed it kind of stumbled into it during a counseling practice. And there's if you want to do a deep dive into it, the website has a ton of information about the psychology and the research that goes into the questions and why it's structured the way it is. And so if you want to dig into that and see what TPM is predicated on, there is a wealth of information on that website for you to find.
All right. Danny, I think maybe Dave Warnock would like to have a word with him. How about ALS? Can he heal him? Dying Out Loud podcast. Dave Warnock.
Healing ALS. Lou Gehrig's disease, you mean?
Yep.
Interesting.
Dave Warnock is a famous atheist, and he's dying of it. And that's the cause of his depression. So I think it's like, would this method you were talking about be able to cure him? I think is the question.
This method in particular would target the depression, and if the depression is coming from any lie-based beliefs, yes. Again, I want to clarify that depression is not always the result of lie-based beliefs. My grandmother was suffering depression just because her brain was not making a particular chemical at the level it needed to, and taking pills to replace that brought her right out of it. But if that depression is being caused or increased by any lie-based beliefs, then yes, it could target that and deal with that. This particular transformation prayer method is not designed to heal physical things. There are other things that can, but I haven't studied those or experienced those nearly as well, so that's why we're talking about this one.
Gotcha. Charles and Solo asked, what other works of fiction does Kyle enjoy reading?
Well, first, I wouldn't classify the Bible as fiction, but what fiction do I enjoy reading? I mean, Tolkien, Asimov, J.K. Rowling. I mean, there's one of the minor sad things in my life is there's so much good fiction out there to read that I just don't have time to get to.
Gotcha. Does God ever choose not allow someone who is truly committed to quitting an addiction to quit that addiction? How do you know that this is the case or isn't the case?
No, and that's why I said the power of God is mechanical when it comes to transformation prayer, that anybody who wants to deal with the beliefs, behind their addiction can, and God always shows up and brings that truth. God is not fickle. This is not something you have to just hope God is going to show up and answer. The reason the rate of success is so high is because God's just always right there, willing to speak into it.
Gotcha. What is the best way to test the falsifiability of your belief?
The best way to test the falsifiability, that's an interesting word. Yeah, it would be to go through it, to be really willing to really commit to the process, and then to see nothing happen. But in the thousands of people I've worked with, that has never happened once. So is it falsifiable? Yes. Has it been falsified? No.
Cool. I think that's it for the questions. We've been going for about almost 2 hours now. Really appreciate you coming on. It was a great conversation. Do you want to give any links or references where people can find more about your work?
Again, I'd say just why Tom should become a Christian.quora.com is probably the quickest place for me to just drop links or interact with people. This has been an interesting conversation. I feel like this is part one of a very longer topic, but anyway, this has been a conversation. So thank you for working with me here, and especially, yeah, for all the technical glitches at the start, I apologize for not figuring out a solution to that other than just the voice here.
Sure, no
But yeah,
problem. There was one. Iron Cherry Tier asked one last one that's kind of interesting.
Sure.
What is the second best explanation for the supernatural experiences you've had?
Interesting. What is the second best explanation for the supernatural experiences you've had? That reality doesn't exist, that my brain is floating in a jar and someone is juicing the electrodes to make me hallucinate every single thing I'm experiencing.
That's a rough one. All right.
What's the second best explanation for the world that you experience?
Oh, well, so I think it's more like, say that the people who you've gone through the transformational prayer with and they've had the positive experiences, what would be the second best explanation for that phenomenon other than God existing? And if your answer is you're in the matrix or something, it seems
Yeah.
like a bit of a
I see that,
stretch.
yeah.
Like, I think there's an easier
Gotcha.
way to explain it. It's just like psychological.
Yeah, I was taking that
effect.
from a different angle.
Gotcha.
There are several people who come in who have tried everything. And I love working with those people because it just kind of removes the possibility that this is just power of suggestion and it's just somebody wants it to work, so therefore it works. Because if that was the situation, then one of the other dozen things they've tried would have produced the results they want. But working with them in that situation, I just love because God shows up just the way he does for everybody else.
Well, the question is what would be the second best explanation? So if it was not God, what could explain it?
The reason that's hard to answer, it feels like someone asking, if you look outside your window and you see everything illuminated by light, what's the second best explanation other than the sun shining down from the sky? It feels like that kind of a question to me right now.
Yeah.
It's just, it works. So asking what's the second best explanation if it doesn't work, it's like, but it does work. But the sun is shining. It is the sunlight. You know, what's the second best explanation other than the sun? Somebody has a ton of flashlights up in orbit. I don't know. Like it's the sun.
That would work. But yeah, so it's a problem solving question based on something in philosophy called the problem of underdetermination. The problem of underdetermination says there's infinitely many ways to explain all the data. And so if you have one potential explanation, you want to try to figure out what is the simplest alternative explanation. And that's usually see if it's simpler than yours or not. So it's just referencing the problem of underdetermination to see if you can come up with the simplest alternative explanation of the data you've seen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there isn't much of a simpler explanation other than God did it, which frustrates people to no end.
Well, I mean, like you could be under a delusion. It was a placebo effect. People are lying. Those would all be possibilities. Aliens could do it.
Yes.
You being a brain in a vat and the programmer programming this, that would also do it. So all of these would be potential alternative explanations other than an all-powerful being.
None of them are simple. Yeah, 1,000 people being delusional in exactly the same way, even people who are resistant to the process, who don't think it'll work, that's not simpler. A brain in a jar, is a solution, but it's not a simpler one.
Not
Uh,
simpler than an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving being who created the universe and exists outside of space-time?
the simplest idea, the simplest explanation uh, is God, an infinite, uncaused, all-powerful being who doesn't exist in parts but just exists. The concept just of that is simple.
I
Uh,
don't think so. Seems like the least simple thing by definition. But I guess that's a different topic for a different time.
that would be a fascinating conversation, though.
But yeah, we have been going for 2 hours. Really appreciate you coming on. It was a great conversation, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, I'm going to read through more of these comments. You people are commenting. Some of you have just wonderful senses of humor. You're amazing.
Sure.
I mean, some of them are not trying to be humorous. I don't mean anybody is, but the ones who are and are making jokes, you guys are amazing. Didn't comment on all of them because we've tried to focus on the questions, but you got a fun audience.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. I'm gonna go. Talk to you later.
This feels like a Minnesota goodbye.
Yep.
Which I know you can appreciate.
Email Jeff for the thing. We can set up the thing. Get
Absolutely
coffee or whatever. See ya.